Good even again, everyone, or a good day, whichever part of the world you're in. Could be good morning. I want to welcome you back to my channel. It is Malachi's Perspective, and today we're looking at something interesting. As you know, space become limited for living and for agriculture. We want to look at some alternatives that we can use to produce crops or to have vegetable or to have our flower. Right? For this session, we want to look at container gardening, and we'll put emphasis on rooftop farming. Yes, rooftop farming. Yes, welcome to the channel again. It has been a week or so. Again, we have to give thanks to those persons who have been following, and I want to special thanks for those persons that will follow, because interesting things are happening. We have a number of issues we are dealing with. I may not be seen as a travel blogger now. I tend to give information that are relevant, and every now and then you'll get a travel video. So stay tuned. Ask someone to have a look. Let us have a look at what Malachi has in store. Right, so we say we are looking at container gardening, and by definition, a definition that will encompass a description of what container gardening would have been. And it is an alternative method of crop cultivation in local areas or in localities. Just getting the definition in full order again. We said that container gardening is an alternative method to crop cultivation in localities or in some areas, in special areas. And here are some of the criteria now: with poor soil quality, very thin topsoil, inadequate for planting, and land that cannot be cultivated, maybe due to the terrains or whether the slope of the land or depression, and areas that have no soil whatsoever. So when we look at container garden, that is what we're looking at. But so based on that definition given, then there's no excuse for one not to plant, whether you're planting crops, whether you're planting vegetable. So what can one use to plant crops? So if we're talking about container, what can we use? So we can use flower pots, and these are commercially sold. We can use recycled plastic containers. We can use constructed containers. We can use metal containers. We can use tires, or we can use baskets, and even wooden constructed material we can use. So ideally, things that are in the environment that have been used, and we can reuse them to make our container garden. What crops can be grown? Nearly all vegetables can be grown using the container garden. So we can grow vegetables. You can have a nice garden with your condiments and your spices or herbs, or even ornamental to bring this aesthetic to the area. All these can be included in a container garden system or a container garden setting. Right? So let us go a little further. The types of container system. So we want to look at the different types of container systems that we have. We want to look at container system in different background. We want to look at it based on what medium you use. So we can have one, right, medium, or we can use a different criteria. So if based on the medium that we use, we can refer to different container gardens. So one medium could have been the soil. So we could use soil. So we use the earth and we mix it, and we may add it manure, we may add fertilizer, we may add compost, and that is one way. The other way would have been using soilless media. So we get commercially made potting mix, or some people refer to these as inert. So they do not react like sand or stone, right? Or we get inert material like your perlite, your vermiculite, and these, your sand, and these would have been just a medium for growth. And I just want us to understand that when we plant crops, soil is not a must. It is just one of the growing medium that we can use to grow our crops. Very interesting, right? So when we use soilless medium, I had made a list of some. So we have sand, we have perlite, we have peat moss, we have commercial potting mix, and these are sold in most of the farm stores. And these can be imported from China. You can even buy them online, right? Depends on what you want. We can use gravel, we can use coconut, cayenne, that can be locally available, right? So it depends on what you can get. And even there are some situations where we have grow bags, and we have grow bags with kaya moss, or we have kaya and cocoa pod kaya. So kaya normally refer to coconut. So these we can use. Right? But irrespective of the system we use, the crop needs to be fertilized. So whether you're using soil or we using soilless media or medium, then it must be fertilized and it must be irrigated. Right? So irrigation and fertilizer application methods, they can be combined, or we can use other crop care that is done with normal agriculture. Right? So yes, we're talking about container gardening, right? Looking at some basic information. All right. So when we talk about the soilless medium, we could even further break it down and we could call it, say, hydroponics, or we do aeroponics, right? And these we have to be careful. So the process of growing crop in air or mist environment without the use of soil and aggregates or aggregated medium, that is what aeroponics would have been. And when we speak about hydroponics, we are talking about growing crops in medium other than soil. So we can grow them in inert material. We can grow them in water, and that would have been the old definition of hydroponics. So when we grow them in water. But when we grow them even in the soilless mix, that becomes, that has been classified as hydroponics. Very interesting. Let us continue. Remember, first when we were looking at the type of container, we look at the first one based on the medium that is used, whether soil or we were looking at, say, soilless media. We could also use system based on the container, right? So two other container would have been gardening based on the crop that are planted or the place where we plant them. So think of it. So we look at the crop and the place where we plant them. So one, we can place them in containers on the ground or on raised areas. So we can maybe put them on blocks, or we can put them on crates. So it would have been raised a little off the ground or just on the ground. And again, we could even classify that again as the ground and slightly raised. And then we could also place these containers now on rooftop. And we're referring to a roof that has been slabbed or has been decked. Those are the rooftop we are referring to. So right, there is, however, some amount of drawback here. Because again, the roof needs to be flat. So some person may have their roof shape angular, but it has to be flat so that we have the crops being planted nice. And again, it depends. If it is not flat and it's shaped like how a normal roofing would have been, then we would have to have what we call tiers. And these tiers now would help to have it nicely decorated for that aesthetic, or to help with the whole therapy. It could be therapeutic, right? Very interesting, right? So this leads us to what we call rooftop farming, and that is what we would have been concentrating on. So we do container and then rooftop farming. That's why I say rooftop farming. Again, many persons have their house deck in different areas, and you could plant a number of crops there. When we look at it, we will see some interesting. But did you know? Very important. Did you know that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, right, constructed about 60 or 600 BC, yes, 600, not 60, 600 BC, right, was one of the 7 wonders of the world, and they refer to them as the 7 wonders of ancient world. Very important, where flowers and ornamentals and crops and trees were planted in tiers, and the area looked like an artificial hill. Very interesting. Research it, look it up. You can find it online. The Hanging Garden of Babylon. All right, very important fact tidbit. Yeah, so we say rooftop farming. We want to look at what is it. Are there any worthwhile advantages? Let us investigate rooftop farming. We want to have an idea what it is. Right? So you can leave in the comment section. What do you think it is? Is it beneficial? Has it been used in your area? Let us look at it. Rooftop farming, by definition, is a cultivation of fresh produce on top of buildings. Simply put, right? Within built-up areas. you know, with built up areas where you have skyscrapers and you have these tall buildings for housing, people will put one or two nice ornamental on their corridor, on their window, right? And that is part of what we call rooftop farming. And that's where it began. That's where it began. So areas like Kingston in Jamaica, Portmore, Montego Bay, they would have been ideal areas in Jamaica. And we can look at other areas like in the Caribbean. We can look at Bridgetown, Barbados. And we can look at Port of Spain in Trinidad and Tobago. Those would have been prime areas that this could be done. Right? So it's important so you can plant your crop plants there. And again, this will help you to produce vegetables that you're sure that they are chemical free or they are healthy. Right? So rooftop farming, we need to investigate it. Try it if you have flat roof. Try it if you are living in high-rise building. Try it. It's the way forward. Yes, so we're at rooftop farming. And we look at it that we can plant fresh produce or fresh crops, herbs and vegetables. But when we say crop, we normally place crop in distinct categories. So crop could have been, by definition, it's a plant or a plant product that can be grown and harvested for profit or for subsistence. And we have different categories that we place them in. So we may have food crops, we may have crops for feed for your animals. Yes, they can be grown on rooftop. For fiber, like cotton and so on, or even the stalk of sorrel, oil plants like your castor oil for ornamental, and that would add beauty. Imagine you are on a hill or even on a flattened person's on a hill and seeing the aesthetic of your crops, the different color, the different levels or multi-story that you have. Very important. Very important. We have industrial crops too that are all crop plants. Right? Very important. I remember when we plant on our rooftop, we can do hydroponics, and we can also do aeroponics, and aeroponics is a new one, right? And basically the principle of aeroponics, growing crops or plant suspended, right, in a closed environment. Yeah, in a closed environment. You know, by spraying the roots or the plant, so the roots would have been dangling out. You know, research it, very important. Again, we may not think it too difficult, right? It is easy. Again, it's a principle that we want to understand. Yes, there may be some sophistication, but it is a principle that we want to look at. You know, on the lower stem with some mist spraying, so they are getting the nutrients. Very important. It is being done in many countries. Some countries do it in some controlled areas. Right, so that all of the variables are being maintained. And again, there has to be some nutrient solution that is being sprayed on. Right, very, very, very important. Right, so this will lead us to think of some benefits of rooftop. So based on what I would have been saying so far, then rooftop farming must have some benefits. So why would I stress it? Look it up. But let us look at a few of the benefits, because if we are to sustain ourselves so that future generation can benefit from what is available now, then we have to look at alternative ways of growing crop, of maintaining the soil, of letting the place be cooler. I think rooftop farming is one of the best way forward. All right, so rooftop farming, first and foremost, it provides food. And that is what you would want, fresh vegetable, right? Again, it assists with temperature control. So you have the areas covered. So you have to think of how you'll go about that. And there are many YouTube channels that would give you information as it relates to that. You'll cover the area with a nice plastic thick enough to prevent water from going through. Right? So, and as I said, it would assist with temperature control, especially in the hot, if you are living in the tropics or you are living in areas that are extremely hot. So areas like Portmore, areas like Santa Cruz, areas like some areas of Kingston. You have some countries that are extremely hot. But once you have that slab roof, and again, it doesn't have to be a roof once it's high rise, but ideally the roof. And again, you have to have some access to go there. All right, so it provides a green area. Continue with the benefit. It provides a green area that, you know, we can have all of these processes taking place. So you have the carbon dioxide and the oxygen exchange to make it a healthier place. Yes, that is a good benefit. Also, we want to look at the whole design of the area. Are we going to have the plants at different levels? So we have this sort of architectural design there. Very important. It could be a masterpiece, somewhere where you want to go every evening to relax and enjoy, you know, what you have put together. Again, an area for recreation. So you go there and you go with the children, or you go by yourself to get some peace and quietness, right? It is also an area that encourages a thriving ecosystem. So you know that it's an area that birds could come and you'd have some amount of pests. So you have microorganisms and you have birds feeding or roosting. So it becomes a nice habitat too for wildlife or for pollinators. So bees would have been there, birds would have been there, other pests would have been there. And I'm referring to the harmless ones, right? The beneficial ones, right? So again, you can generate income. You can produce crops that are exotic or that are costly or that are in high demand, and you produce them there, yes, on the roof. So it depends on the container that you want to look at. We'll look at the containers earlier. So it all has to do with your design. So as I made mention of the beneficial insects earlier, you know, like the ladybird bee, the honeybee, those are great pollinators, right? And they're beneficial too, because the ladybird beetle now would eat the aphids. So you want that sort of relationship. I say you generate income, and not only that, but if the area is large enough, you can create employment. So while you're at your 9 to 5 job, you would have somebody there that is doing all of that crop care. Right? So, and again, it reduces the heat on the top of your building or the heat in the house. It would have been covered. Some of that plant there would absorb that excess heat, and that heat wouldn't have been focusing on the concrete. Right? So very important. Right? Some general things that we need to look at. We need to design it so that these containers, they are lightweight, right? And the material holds water well. Preferably if you can get self-watering containers, so you get like your drip and trickle, or what we call them nowadays, a micro drip. Yeah, look it up. New terms for some person, right? And we can use multi-layer, as I made mention already, multi-layer, multi-tier. Right? And even in some cases, you can even buy that net too to cover. Depending on what you plant, you may not want birds to come and feast upon what you have there, especially if you have fruit vegetables. Right? So your design can be very important. Back to some of the benefits. Benefits, you're going to decrease, as I did mention with the green area, decrease the harmful carbon dioxide and increase oxygen in the air. So that circulation, that balance. Right? You want to contribute first and foremost, and I think foremost, to environmental sustainability. And again, natural resource. So you want to ensure that, guess what? I am not destroying the environment. I am not causing pollution. I am not using too much synthetic chemical. That's important, you know, especially if you are doing it for subsistence. Again, very important thing. Yes, especially in the hot time, you can save electricity bill, because the rooftop becomes cooler. You're going to use less money for electricity. So you wouldn't have to turn on the AC or the fan for extended period of time. Very important. Yes, we're looking at container gardening, in particular rooftop gardening or farming. Yes, and finally, again, no system is perfect. So each system has some amount of drawback, or we say issues. So with rooftop farming, what are some of the issues? Yeah, you can think of issues. Put them in the comment section, right? And let us have a look at them, right? So we have very high roofs can be a problem, right? And especially where we have strong winds, because this can be an issue. It could have been that it dries out the soil or the medium quickly, or it can cause the plants to topple over. Again, the higher you go, the wind would have been more severe. Again, if the roof is poorly designed, or even if the garden is poorly designed, we could have seepage into that concrete slab, and you could have problem with your roofing. Could seep through and cause caking or dripping and all sort of issues there. Very important. And again, birds may eat the ripe fruit. I made mention of that earlier. And again, you wouldn't want the animals or the birds to consume most of your fruits. So that's why a person would put net in there. And again, the final one, access to the roof. Again, if your house wasn't designed with an outside stair, it wasn't designed with a staircase, then you may have problem. You may have to now make a ladder to climb. And this may not be too comfortable. So if you have a staircase that you can go up, and some persons do have a stairway that they can walk up, and then you have like a nice balcony there. And again, it could help as a nice aesthetic. So you can entertain your guests there. And you can go there, you can have the area bordered with your ornamental. And these ornamental tend to pop. Colorful, different colors, green, depends on the bloom, and then the blooms now we have red, we have yellow, we have various colors, we have those that are annuals, those that are perennials, biennials. And we have different types, and we can put them in nice fancy containers. And even the color of the containers would add some amount of aesthetic. Yes, very important issue. It is Malachi's perspective. Information are always available online. But you can't say I didn't give it to you. Right? We're looking at rooftop farming. But first and foremost, it was container. So we have to find a way to plant that few vegetable, to have that little spice or condiment that will benefit our garden, right? By that whole spread. So we can use for composting, or it will benefit us in the terms of food. So a number of issues. Stay tuned. Issues as we go on. It is Malachi Perspective. Drop a comment down there. Tell me what you think about this video. There are more coming, because I will look at some of these issues as they affect us. Yes, we have temperature rise and the place will be getting hotter. And we have issues where the cost of things will get higher. Let us start at our home. Let us do some container garden. And in particular, if you have flat roof or in a high-rise building, let us do rooftop farming. Thank you very much. It is Malachi Perspective.